Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try to understand, really break down all this stuff about humanitarian aid coming from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
They just released their 2024 summary, and I gotta say, it's pretty intense. So many numbers and details.
It's a lot to process.
It's a lot to process, so that's why we're here. Right?
Absolutely.
So we're diving in today, and we're going to unpack all of this stuff. We're going to look at, like, how much aid they're actually giving,
Right.
where is it all going, and I think some really interesting ways that they get it to people.
Yeah, the logistics are pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. And the cool thing is that this is all coming straight from the source. It's their Caring for Those in Need 2024 summary report, and it just dropped. Like, literally today, March 25th, 2025.
Fresh off a press.
Super fresh. Okay, so jumping right into this,
Do it.
what really kind of hits you first, right out of the gate, is just like how big this whole thing is.
The scale is pretty incredible.
Yeah, the scale is pretty incredible.
In 2024, they provided $1.45 billion
Right.
in humanitarian aid, welfare, and other relief efforts.
Yeah.
That's a massive amount of money. What kind of impact does a figure that large actually have?
I mean, you start to wonder, what does that look like on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that actually doing? And when you see that it's the third year in a row that they've hit over $1 billion, it really starts to sink in that this isn't,
It's a pattern.
yeah, it's not just a one-time thing. It's a consistent,
It's a sustained commitment.
yeah, a sustained, huge commitment.
Right.
And, the report kind of breaks down some of the growth, right? Like, back in 2021, it was $906 million.
Oh.
So that means in just 3 years, they've added like over $500 million. That's crazy, a 60% jump. What's really been driving that huge increase the past few years? Because the report specifically mentions that their spending on welfare and humanitarian aid has gone up by $500 million in just the last 4 years. It's like, it's accelerating.
Yeah. And if you look at where some of that extra money went in 2024, a big chunk, like $55.8 million, was specifically for helping moms and babies and toddlers in 12 countries in Africa and Asia. It's pretty interesting to see them focus in like that. Do you know what specific needs in those areas they were trying to address?
Yeah, it's really strategic how they're targeting things. It's not just kind of, throwing money at a problem.
Right.
And beyond that initiative, the report also talks about their continued support in other areas. Child nutrition, of course, making sure kids are getting what they need, more help for moms and newborns, not just in those 12 countries, but across the board. And then the really important things like immunizations, making sure everyone is protected, and education, which is like the key to breaking cycles of poverty, right?
Definitely. It seems like a pretty comprehensive approach.
It's very thorough, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's clear that they have a real philosophy behind all of this. They even quote the Relief Society General President, Camille N. Johnson, who says, "When you bless a woman, you bless a family, a community, a nation. When you bless a child, you invest in the future."
And that really highlights their belief that this kind of aid has a ripple effect, right? Like it goes beyond just the immediate need. How do they actually turn that idea into action, though? How do they pick the projects they support and make sure they're doing the most good?
It's a big question, right? Like, we know how much they're giving and what they're focusing on,
Mm-hmm.
but how do they actually get it to the people who need it most?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, right? And the report says they reached people in 192 countries in 2024. I mean, that's almost every country in the world.
That is pretty incredible.
That's a truly global reach. How do they do it? Well, the report talks about their welfare system, but what's interesting is that it's much more than just like physical places, like the bishop's storehouses, which are kind of like, I guess you'd call them community grocery stores for people in need. It's really a whole network.
Oh,
They've got
right.
the local congregations who are always doing things in their own communities.
Right.
And then the Relief Society, their women's organization, which, by the way, has over 8 million members. That's a powerful force.
That's a huge network.
And then there's this thing called ministering, which is basically where members of the church reach out to individuals and families in their communities to offer support,
Sure.
whether it's just a listening ear or more tangible help. And even their monthly fasting, where they skip meals and donate the money they would spend on food, that all goes into their humanitarian fund. It's a pretty integrated system.
So it's like built into their whole way of life, not just something they do on the side.
Exactly. And it's not all done internally either. The report emphasizes that they partner with a lot of other organizations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like big national and international charities.
Yeah.
It's really smart because that way they can tap into all the experience and infrastructure that those groups already have.
Yeah.
They don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
That makes sense.
And they can work with people who are experts in things like logistics, healthcare, and community development. It's not just about writing checks. It's about working strategically to make the biggest difference possible.
What do you think about the church as a faith-based organization partnering with secular charities? I mean, there must be some unique benefits and challenges to that approach.
Right. I mean, on one hand, it seems really efficient and effective.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's different kind of collaboration than maybe what we're used to seeing.
For sure. And speaking of efficiency, don't forget about what they're doing at the local level. They have over 31,000 congregations around the world,
Yeah.
and they're constantly helping people in their communities, not just when there's a big disaster, but every single day.
Right. It's ongoing work. Exactly. And one thing that really stood out to me in the report was the number of volunteer hours that members contribute. Over 6.6 million hours in 2024. 6.6 million hours.
That's incredible.
It really shows how broad their reach is. It's not just about responding to emergencies. It's about working on long-term solutions and building stronger communities. It's proactive, not just reactive.
That's so important. And it's cool that they're getting young people involved, too. The report talks about how church leaders specifically called out the amazing contributions of teenagers and young adults. Engaging the next generation seems to be a really big deal for them.
It does, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the future of their efforts depends on getting young people excited about service. The report mentions how they're expanding their global initiative for mothers and infants, which seems like a natural way for younger members to get involved.
Yeah.
And then there's the Just Serve clubs that they're starting in high schools in North America. It's a cool idea. It's basically like a service club where kids can get together and do good in their communities.
Mm.
And Presiding Bishop Gerald Caussé is quoted in the report saying that this generation of young people is really passionate about service. He said they just love it and love the spirit of it more than maybe any other generation.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring.
And they're not just relying on these clubs, they're weaving service into all sorts of youth activities, like their young single adult conferences and for the Strength of Youth conferences. It's like they're building a culture of service from the ground up.
And the impact goes beyond immediate relief efforts, too. The report also talks about their self-reliance initiatives.
Mm.
In 2024, they had 579 projects in this area with over 128,000 participants. It's all about giving people the tools and skills they need to become more independent and create better lives for themselves and their families.
Yeah, that's a much more sustainable approach than just handing out aid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're also doing a lot to support people struggling with addiction. The report says they hold over 2,503 addiction recovery meetings every week.
Wow, that's a lot of support.
It's a pretty significant commitment to helping people overcome these challenges. And speaking of reaching people, we can't forget about their Just Serve platform. You know, the one we talked about with the high school clubs. It actually helped facilitate over 30,000 additional service projects in 2024. It's amazing how they're using technology to connect people with ways to serve.
It's pretty impressive. But before we wrap up, there's one important thing to keep in mind about that big $1.45 billion number.
Oh yeah, what's that?
The report makes it clear that this doesn't include everything. For instance, they also contribute over $1 billion every year to their global education system. So their total investment in human well-being is actually even bigger than that already massive number.
That's a good point. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, but ultimately, this is all about people, right? And when you look at what's driving their efforts, the report quotes the First Presidency, who are like the top leaders of the church, saying that they encourage members to seek and reach out to the One, and that their goal is to help everyone feel God's love. It really gives you a sense of the heart behind all of this.
It's about much more than just money. It's about compassion and connection. And the report quotes Elder Blaine R. Maxfield, who talks about the church's reputation for showing up when things are really bad. It's about being there in times of crisis and providing that immediate relief that people so desperately need.
And Bishop Caussé also mentioned in the report that the church has been steadily increasing its humanitarian and welfare spending every year since at least 2015. This isn't a new thing for them. It's a long-term commitment that they've been building on for almost a decade.
So to sum it all up, this 2024 summary shows that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is seriously dedicated to helping people around the world. We're talking $1.45 billion in a single year, reaching people in almost every country, tackling everything from hunger to healthcare to education. And it's all made possible by the incredible generosity and volunteer work of its members.
It's a really impressive effort.
It really is. It's amazing to see how they're working on so many different levels, responding to crises, building long-term solutions, and empowering people to create better lives for themselves.
Yeah. And it makes you think, with all this growth in faith-based humanitarian work that we're seeing, what does it say about the role that these organizations are playing in addressing the world's challenges? I mean, these are big, complex issues that we're facing, and it seems like groups like the church are really stepping up to make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's definitely something to think about. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that question. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.